Tampa car dealership abruptly closed its doors today, leaving already frustrated customers wondering what to do next.
The 2025 car market crash is here, and it's worse than you think. While you might think prices are finally dropping, dealerships are drowning in unsold inventory, and major manufacturers are struggling to stay afloat. What's driving this collapse, why prices are still high, and what it means for your next purchase. But what if this crisis isn't just a temporary setback? Stick around to find out. What's happening? What was once a bustling hub of activity is now eerily quiet. Cars have been sitting unsold for months, gathering dust and taking up valuable space. Once coveted models like the Ford F-150, Ram 1500, and Toyota Tundra, known for their popularity and high demand, are now lingering on dealership lots with no buyers in sight. The Ford F-150, a symbol of American strength and reliability, once flew off the lot the moment it arrived. Now, some dealerships are holding onto these trucks for over 200 days, more than 6 months. The situation is even worse for some Ram trucks and Toyota Tundras. These vehicles, once staples for buyers looking for power and versatility, are sitting unsold, with thousands of models stuck on lots across the nation. As these trucks gather dust, an unsettling image begins to emerge. Overflow lots. Dealerships unable to find space for these unsold vehicles are renting additional parking spaces. Some are even parking cars on empty fields, turning them into makeshift graveyards for unsold cars. It's a jarring sight, shiny new vehicles sitting idle, their once promising futures now uncertain. Price disconnect. One of the major reasons for this overwhelming pileup of unsold inventory is a glaring disconnect between car prices and what consumers are willing or able to pay. Over the past few years, car prices have soared by a staggering 42% since 2019. This price surge has created an insurmountable barrier for many buyers, especially those from working-class backgrounds who once relied on affordable vehicles to meet their needs. Take the Toyota Tundra Platinum Crew Max, for example. This truck, which was once considered a mid-range option for families and small business owners, now comes with a hefty price tag of $75,000. That's a significant leap from just a few years ago, when a similar model was within the reach of many middle-income buyers. Even with discounts and offers, these prices are simply out of reach for most consumers. What was once a popular choice is now a financial burden. This dramatic price hike isn't just limited to the Toyota Tundra. Vehicles that used to be priced for the average family, like the Ford Bronco Raptor or the Ram 1500, have seen similar increases. These trucks now cost as much as luxury vehicles, and despite dealers offering huge discounts, they're still sitting unsold. The disconnect between price and value has never been more evident, and it's preventing these cars from finding their way into the hands of eager buyers. Struggling dealerships. As the unsold inventory continues to pile up, dealerships are facing a financial crisis. The pressure is mounting as they try to find ways to move these vehicles off the lot before they incur even more costs. In an attempt to clear their inventory, many dealerships have resorted to drastic measures, slashing prices and offering huge discounts. Some are even providing zero-interest financing, hoping to entice buyers into making a purchase. But even with these efforts, cars are still sitting unsold. The demand simply isn't there, and the massive price increases have made it more difficult than ever for dealerships to attract buyers. For dealerships, every unsold vehicle represents money tied up in inventory, which they can't afford to lose. As these vehicles sit unsold, dealerships are facing mounting financial strain, with flooring costs eating into their profits. Flooring costs refer to the interest dealerships pay on the unsold cars they finance. It's essentially the cost of holding on to inventory. Each month, dealerships are paying interest on every unsold vehicle, and as inventory accumulates, so do the flooring costs. These mounting expenses are starting to cripple dealerships, forcing them to take desperate measures to stay afloat. But the problem is much bigger than just a few unsold cars. It's a systemic issue that could have far-reaching consequences for the entire industry. Dealer desperation and bankruptcy. Desperation is starting to set in at dealerships. With months of unsold inventory, the pressure to move cars has led many dealerships to offer extreme discounts, zero-interest financing, and other enticing deals. However, these tactics are starting to reach their limit. The reality is that even with these aggressive sales strategies, many dealerships are still struggling to clear their lots. If things don't change soon, the consequences could be dire. Many dealerships are teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. The financial strain caused by unsold cars, combined with mounting flooring costs, is unsustainable for many. Some dealerships have already started laying off staff and cutting costs in an attempt to survive. But for others, bankruptcy may be the only option if the cars don't start selling. The extreme measures dealerships are taking are a sign of just how bad things have gotten. They're doing everything they can to move inventory before the financial burden becomes too great. But with no end in sight to the rising prices and declining demand, it's unclear how much longer these dealerships can keep up this charade. The car market crash is no longer just a possibility, it's already underway, and it's threatening to bring down dealerships with it. The hidden burden of negative equity. For many car buyers, there's a hidden financial burden that's becoming harder and harder to ignore. Negative equity. Negative equity occurs when the amount owed on a car loan exceeds the current value of the vehicle. In simple terms, it means that buyers are underwater. They owe more on their car than it's actually worth. Currently, the national average for negative equity stands at a staggering $7,200. This means that on average, car buyers owe more than $7,000 beyond what their vehicles are worth. This growing trend is making it more difficult for people to trade in their vehicles or upgrade to newer models. Since the trade-in value is less than the outstanding loan balance, buyers are forced to roll over this negative equity into their next auto loan. This in turn leads to even higher payments and deeper financial strain. What's worse is that negative equity has created a cycle of debt that's difficult to escape. Buyers who are already struggling to keep up with their current car payments are finding it nearly impossible to break free, leading to financial stress that only worsens over time. Without the ability to trade in or refinance their cars, many buyers are stuck with high payments, making it harder for them to plan for the future. The debt spiral and rising auto loan rates. The situation is further exacerbated by rising interest rates, which have driven auto loan rates to an average of 7%. While this may not sound like much, when applied to a car loan, these interest rates significantly increase the total cost of the vehicle. Buyers who already have negative equity are now paying even more in interest, further deepening their financial woes. As the interest rates climb, so do monthly payments. What was once an affordable car payment has now become a financial burden. On average, new car buyers are now paying over $760 per month for their vehicle. And it's not just a few buyers feeling the pinch. 1 in 6 borrowers is now paying over $1,000 a month for their auto loan. This steep increase in monthly payments means that families are sacrificing other expenses just to keep up with their car payments, further limiting their financial freedom. The rise in interest rates has made it more difficult for buyers to manage their auto loans, especially when the overall cost of the vehicle is already inflated due to higher prices. For many buyers, the reality is that they're paying more for their cars than ever before, with no relief in sight. This is pushing many to the brink, unable to afford the cars they once hoped would be an upgrade in their lives. Repossession Crisis. As a result of the rising costs, many families are finding themselves in the difficult position of falling behind on their car payments. In fact, auto loan repossessions have jumped by an alarming 23% in the past year alone. This rise in repossessions is directly linked to the combination of higher interest rates, inflated car prices, and rising monthly payments. For many families, keeping up with their auto loans has become a constant struggle. They're forced to choose between paying their car loan or taking care of other essential needs like housing or groceries. The stress of juggling high payments and mounting debt has led to more and more families falling behind on their loans, ultimately resulting in the repossession of their vehicles. These repossessions are not just a statistic, they're real people, real families, losing their means of transportation and facing the consequences of a car market that has become far too expensive for the average buyer. Rising costs and affordability issues. It's not just the car payments that are creating financial hardship for buyers, it's also the soaring cost of insurance premiums. Over the past few years, auto insurance premiums have risen sharply, making it even harder for families to afford a new car. In many states, annual increases of 50 to 60% have become the norm, forcing buyers to pay more just to keep their vehicles insured. This further exacerbates the financial strain, especially when added to already high car payments. The combination of high car payments, rising interest rates, and skyrocketing insurance premiums is pushing many people to hold on to their older, less fuel-efficient cars for longer than they had planned. Buyers who may have once upgraded to a newer vehicle are now stuck, unable to afford the payments on a new car. Instead, they're holding on to vehicles that are becoming more expensive to maintain, while simultaneously missing out on the potential savings a newer, more fuel-efficient car could provide. This growing affordability issue has created a situation where people are forced to make hard choices, continue paying for an older car that is costing them more in repairs and maintenance, or struggle to keep up with unaffordable new car payments and insurance premiums. It's a lose-lose situation that has only been made worse by the car market crash, and it's something that many families are facing every day. Nissan and General Motors in crisis. The car market crash is hitting some of the biggest players in the automotive industry, with manufacturers like Nissan and General Motors facing unprecedented challenges. Nissan, once a global powerhouse known for its innovative vehicles, is now grappling with the fallout of overproduction and declining demand. For years, Nissan pushed out new models at an unsustainable pace, betting that the market would continue to grow. Instead, the opposite happened. Consumer demand slowed down significantly, and now the company is left with a massive backlog of unsold vehicles. In response to this crisis, Nissan has been forced to make drastic cuts. The company recently announced the elimination of 9,000 jobs across its global operations in an attempt to cut costs and stabilize its business. Alongside these job cuts, Nissan is also planning a 25% reduction in vehicle production to align with the declining demand. This is a monumental shift for the company, highlighting just how serious the situation has become. Once a major player in the car market, Nissan is now struggling to maintain profitability in a market that has shifted beneath it. The overproduction crisis. The root of much of the current crisis in the car market lies in overproduction. Manufacturers, in an effort to meet what they believed would be increasing demand, produced more vehicles than the market could ever absorb. For years, automakers ramped up production, thinking that car sales would continue to rise. They even built up excess inventory in anticipation of future demand. But this strategy has backfired spectacularly. Now, dealerships are flooded with unsold inventory. Cars that once would have been sold quickly are now lingering on lots for months, and the longer they stay unsold, the more expensive they become for dealerships to maintain. This has led to financial struggles across the industry, with manufacturers and dealerships alike sitting on a massive stockpile of vehicles that they cannot sell. Dealerships are facing pressure from all sides: higher flooring costs, skyrocketing inventory maintenance, and the inability to move cars off their lots fast enough. The ripple effects of overproduction have created a perfect storm in the automotive industry. With so many cars sitting unsold, prices are starting to fall, but this drop is not enough to keep up with the rising inventory. It's a vicious cycle. Too many cars, not enough buyers, and the pressure to continue making sales at a loss. The overproduction crisis is further exacerbating the financial strain felt by dealerships, making it harder for them to recover and survive in this increasingly unstable market. The electric vehicle gamble. Amidst the chaos, the transition to electric vehicles is proving to be a gamble that's not paying off. Automakers poured billions into the development of EVs, betting that eco-conscious consumers would drive demand for these vehicles. However, the reality has been far different. While Tesla remains a dominant force in the EV market, many other manufacturers are struggling to find their footing in the rapidly changing landscape. One of the biggest issues with the electric vehicle transition is the high cost of these vehicles. Take the Ford F-150 Lightning, for example. This electric version of the iconic Ford F-150 is priced at over $50,000, and some higher-end trims can go as high as $98,000. Similarly, the Hummer EV, a luxury electric truck, carries a price tag well over $100,000. These prices make it difficult for the average buyer to justify purchasing an EV, especially when gasoline-powered vehicles are still much more affordable. Even aggressive discounts on EVs are not enough to drive sales. Ford, for example, has slashed prices on the F-150 Lightning in an attempt to increase its appeal, but the vehicle still isn't moving off the lot as expected. The problem lies in the disconnect between price and demand. Many consumers simply cannot afford or justify the purchase of a luxury-priced electric vehicle, even with large discounts. The collapse of the wholesale market. Another blow to the car industry is the collapse of the wholesale market. Wholesale values, the prices at which dealerships can sell vehicles at auction, have dropped by a staggering 18% in the last financial quarter. This sharp decline in wholesale prices has serious consequences for dealerships, which rely on this market to offload unsold inventory. In the past, if a vehicle didn't sell on the lot, dealerships could turn to wholesale auctions as a safety net to recover some of their costs. But with wholesale values plummeting, dealerships are now finding that they can no longer rely on this fallback. Many vehicles are now worth less at auction than what the dealerships originally paid for them, exacerbating the financial strain. This creates a domino effect. Dealerships are losing money on unsold inventory, and with wholesale values dropping, they're unable to recoup any of their losses. This collapse in the wholesale market is a direct result of the market's oversupply of vehicles. With too many cars on the market and not enough buyers, prices are dropping across the board. The basic principles of supply and demand are wreaking havoc on the automotive industry, leading to an increasingly unstable market. Job losses in the automotive sector. The fallout from the 2025 car market crash is far-reaching, with job losses rippling through the entire automotive sector. It's not just dealerships that are struggling. Entire supply chains, from auto parts manufacturers to advertising agencies, are feeling the impact. Companies that once thrived on the booming car sales are now scaling back or shutting down altogether as demand continues to dwindle. Nissan has already made a painful decision to cut 9,000 jobs across its global operations, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. As production lines slow down and dealerships close their doors, job cuts are expected to extend to other manufacturers and suppliers, especially in regions heavily reliant on automotive production. The industry's downturn is not just a corporate issue, it's a direct blow to the livelihoods of thousands of workers. From factory floors to local dealerships, these job losses will affect communities nationwide, particularly in areas that depend on the automotive sector for employment. Declining car sales and regional economic impact. The consequences of the car market crash aren't limited to car manufacturers alone. They're being felt by entire regions that rely on automotive production as a key pillar of their economy. In places where automotive manufacturing is the backbone of local economies, declining car sales are leading to a sharp decrease in economic activity. For example, cities like Detroit and towns in the Midwest, long dependent on car production, are seeing a decline in employment, tax revenue, and overall economic health as production lines slow or close down altogether. As car sales drop, these regions face a double-edged sword. Lower employment in manufacturing plants leads to reduced consumer spending, which in turn impacts local businesses, shops, service providers, and even schools and healthcare services that rely on the wages of factory workers and dealership staff are now feeling the strain. What was once a thriving industry has turned into a drag on these communities, making it even harder for them to recover in the face of a broader economic downturn. The psychological impact on consumers. Beyond the financial struggles, the inability to afford a new car has a far-reaching psychological effect on consumers. For many, owning a new car is seen as a milestone of financial stability, but with prices soaring, auto loan interest rates climbing, and inventory overstocked, that dream is slipping further away for more and more people. The sense of insecurity is growing as many feel unable to meet the rising costs of car ownership. For those already struggling with existing auto loans, the situation only worsens as trade-in values decline, and the prospect of upgrading to a newer, more reliable vehicle becomes a distant dream. This financial insecurity also affects consumer confidence across the broader economy. People are hesitant to make big-ticket purchases, knowing that the car market is in turmoil. The anxiety surrounding affordability makes people less likely to commit to purchasing cars, contributing to the market's stagnation. The inability to move forward with upgrades or trade-ins further exacerbates feelings of frustration, as consumers find themselves stuck with older, less efficient vehicles that they can't afford to replace. Environmental consequences. The slowdown in car sales and the growing difficulty in purchasing new cars have also had unintended environmental consequences. The push for greener, more fuel-efficient vehicles has been significantly hindered by the current market crash. As the cost of electric vehicles continues to rise, many consumers are unable or unwilling to invest in them. Even with incentives, high MSRP prices for EVs like the Ford F-150 Lightning and Hummer EV are keeping them out of reach for most buyers. This is contributing to a longer lifespan for older, less fuel-efficient vehicles on the road. Consumers are holding on to their existing cars longer, many of which are not environmentally friendly. Instead of transitioning to newer, greener alternatives, people are delaying the inevitable, prolonging the life of vehicles that rely on fossil fuels. This trend is slowing down progress toward environmental goals, as consumers are less likely to switch to electric or hybrid vehicles when the financial burden is too high. The environmental benefits of the green car revolution are being stunted as the rising cost of new cars, combined with financial insecurity, creates a barrier to cleaner, more sustainable transportation. While the automotive industry pushes forward with new technologies, the transition is much slower than anticipated, and consumers are caught in the middle, unwilling or unable to make the leap to greener vehicles. The lending crisis. As the cost of cars continues to rise, so does the strain on financing. Lending standards have tightened in response to growing risks, and auto loans are becoming increasingly difficult to secure. Today, 1 in 5 auto loan applications is being denied, a sharp increase from previous years. Lenders are unwilling to take on the risk of providing loans to consumers who may struggle to repay them, and as a result, many buyers are finding themselves shut out of the car market altogether. This tightening of lending standards is a direct response to the rising number of defaults on existing auto loans. Consumers, unable to manage the rising costs of car ownership and the increasing burden of high interest rates, are defaulting on their loans at alarming rates. As loan delinquencies climb, banks are being forced to make tough decisions about who they lend to, resulting in a ripple effect that makes it even harder for buyers to access the financing they need to purchase a vehicle. The domino effect. The tighter lending standards are creating a vicious cycle in the car market. As fewer people are able to secure auto loans, car sales continue to stagnate. The lack of buyers means dealerships are left with unsold inventory, which further hurts their bottom line. Dealerships are unable to sell cars, and without the revenue from these sales, they are unable to repay their own financing costs, leading to financial strain. The more unsold cars on the lot, the more money dealerships lose, and the more they struggle to stay afloat. This domino effect spreads across the entire industry. With fewer car sales, manufacturers are cutting back production, and the ripple effect continues to impact the broader economy, including the jobs and industries that rely on automotive sales. This downward spiral is further exacerbated by rising interest rates, which make car loans even more expensive and less appealing to consumers. High loan default rates. In addition to tighter lending standards, auto loan default rates have skyrocketed. The number of people falling behind on their car payments has surged, with repossession rates up by 23% over the past year. More families are struggling to keep up with payments, unable to manage the higher monthly car payments that come with rising interest rates and inflated vehicle prices. This rise in defaults and repossessions paints a grim picture for the future of the car market. As the financial strain deepens for consumers, lenders are becoming more cautious, tightening their grip on lending. Without access to financing, fewer people can afford to buy cars, which only increases the number of unsold vehicles sitting on dealership lots. The result is a vicious cycle of financial instability that shows no signs of letting up. As the car market continues to collapse, consumers are facing mounting challenges, from rising prices to rising interest rates. With dealerships struggling to stay afloat and car loans becoming increasingly difficult to secure, the situation is dire. What do you think the future holds for the car market? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.